Kia koutou, kua tai mai, ka timata tā tātou nei webinar I te karakia. Manawa mai e te putunga o Matariki, manawa mai e a Waiti, Waita, Waipunarangi, Tupuanuku, Tupuarangi, Tururangi, manawa mai e te mātahi o te tau. Mai e te tupua, mai e te tawhito, mai e te kāhui o ngā riki, mai e te kāhui o ngā taniwha, tāwhiwhi atu ki ngā tua. Ko rangi nui ki runga ko papatuanuku ki raro. Kaupare atu ngā kino o te wā, kaupare atu ngā poke o te wā. Kia ao whakawātea te arataka tū o tāne whakapiripiri. Tēnei te pau o tupuanuku, tēnei te pau o tupuarangi, ka whakamau ki uta, ka whakamau ki tai. Tūturu whakamaua kia tina, haumi e hui e, tai ki e. Hoi anō nau mai, hara mai ki tēnei o ngā hui topa tua iwa, ana kei konei he mārei kura, he wanginui a tātou. So just some same housekeeping as all our other 8 webinars, and we lead into the 9th webinar. I would like to say this is the final, but I would say that, yeah, there may be more to come in the near future. But you'll see on the page at the bottom, there's a space with Q&A. So Leonie will be hosting our guest today and picking up your questions from the Q&A. So feel free to load those questions in as you listen to our next guest speaker. So I'll hand it over to Professor Leonie Pihama to introduce our mārei kura. Tēnā tātou.
Tēnā koe, hiri aroha, mo tō karakia, hei whakatūwhira I tō tātou hui I tēnei wā, nā reira tēnei mihi atu ki a koe. Kia tātou katoa, mānoatia a Matariki, mānoatia a Puanga, tēnei te mihi o te tauhau, tēnei te mihi kia tātou katoa I hui hui mai nei. So, welcome back everyone to this webinar for He Waka Eke Noa, and as Hiri Aroha said, we're coming to the end of this part of the webinar series. We will be relaunching a new series in November to bring the final results back once we've completed the reporting in October. So we'll send the pānui out to all of those who are registered for this webinar series for if you want to come back and hear the update on all the research outcomes later in the year. We're so privileged to have Hinewirangi with us. For those of you who don't know, Hinewirangi has worked with our rangahau team for many, many years over many projects in multiple ways. And in this particular project, Hinewirangi is our one and only advisor to the project. She's providing us with her reflections as we move through the mahi, and has constantly been there as a touchstone for all of the work we've been doing around He Oranga Ngākau and He Waka Eke Noa. As you know, Hinewirangi is a long term committed mārei kura wahine Māori to this kaupapa. I first met Hinewirangi in the 1980s as a part of Te Kākano Te Whānau when she wrote a film series related to family violence prevention and intervention. And I was fortunate to be working with Sharon Hawke, developing that in terms of the production. Hinewirangi is a tohunga in her own right in many, many ways, in mātauranga Māori, in taonga pūoro, in mahi toi, in poetry, in written word, and spoken word. And so it's been a real pleasure for us always in the last, 40 years nearly, to have Hinewirangi support us in our journey. No Ngāti Porou, Ngāti Kahungunu, and Tauranga Moana, no mai I te mārei kura, tēnei te mihi atu ki a koe, me o pukinga, me o mātauranga, me tō tautoko mai ki a tātou katoa, tēnā koe. I'll hand it over to Hinewirangi. Tēnā koutou.
Tēnā koutou, mihi atu kia koutou. Ko Hinewirangi tōku ingoa, I te taha o tōku whaia, no kahungunu iaia, Ko mau ka e te manga tapu, kunu haka te awa. Ko rongo mai wahine, toku tūpuna whaia, e tu ake au, I raro I tōna koro ai. Tēnā ra koutou, tēnā ra koutou katoa. Engari, ki te taha o tōku matua, no Tauranga Moana, ia ea. Ko mawau te mangatapu, ko Tauranga te moana, ko tama te apo ka whenua, tōku tūpuna matua, e tu ake au, I raro I tōna koro ai. Tēnā ra koutou, tēnā ra koutou katoa. Kia ora koutou, me atu kia koutou. Often I have to sing that because it's easier to teach our people through waiata than it is sometimes to know their pepeha. And I sing it to the boys out at prison. I sing it to those I'm working in the Western Bay with suicide prevention, to those I work throughout the motu and kaitau doing the same kōrero to find themselves. I suppose I want to start with just a piece of work that I, as a poet, put together. Well, it's prose, it's learning about kowaio, who am I, and what work did I do. And I tell you, all these wonderful wahine made me do the work. That's what they do. And they give you that stance. You see, one day somebody said to me, tēnā koe e kui. And I freaked out. Why did I freak, you know? Way ages ago. Mārei kura, tēnā koe. Whoa, what are you saying to me, you know? And I freaked out. I couldn't figure out for the longest of time what it was that frightened me so bad. It wasn't the fact that I was getting old. I'm 74. I'll be 75 at the end of this month, December. It wasn't that I was getting old, because that had nothing to do with it. But what it did finally reveal to me was that for the first time, we don't have such a thing as ageism in traditional Māori. And for the first time, somebody named me. What they named was a kuia, who no longer was a knowledge seeker, but should become the knowledge carrier. And was I ready? Did I have what was needed for our people when they called? What did I have to do to ensure? Over the years was, you know, such a huge journey in my life. And I knew then that I had to use that format and that formula. So I wrote this, a little piece of work that my nan gave me that would, I didn't write it. This is a waiata that I sing to myself, short as, because I use oro. You see, my papa taught us about the oro. Your voice, there's 4 doors of your whare. This is the whare. 4 doors. And they each have a voice. In my puku, sat the kuia crow. And I had to learn. In my puku sat my kuia. And she said to me, as she taught me the song when I was very little, she raised me. And it was like the seaweed has learned to dance, the dance of life. It'll take you into the depths. There, Hinenui Te Po awaits you, and she will send you into the world of light, into the world of Hine Titama. Eh? And I never knew, my nan gave me this song to guide me as I grew, and this song would save my life over and over and over again. And I never knew that until that. And I will sing this song to you at the end. You took my life away, Uncle, when I was 6 years old. You entered that sacred place Nan talked about. I told on you, but no one believed me. You took my voice away. I began to live in a world of silence. You took my heart away, not loving, unable to receive love. You took my stories away. I could not even write the truth anymore, and I lived in a world of lies, make-believe, and deceit. You took my child away from my inside, too early to be woman. You took away my traditions, the tikanga, the kawa, and the protection of me as a young woman. And you took away my birthing channels, unable to give birth. You took away my mother, who wept silently in her own grief. So defiled and dirty, you took away my whare tangata. But I remembered your song then, and I kept singing. I had to find my voice, and I had to find it within me. I went everywhere for healing. I was raped when I was 6 years old, and it wasn't just that once. It was all 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. By the time I'm 15, I'm jumping off 3-story buildings, trying to die and kill myself. My nan comes, and she carries me down. The cooks see me fighting her. The trouble is they don't see my nan. So I get locked up in Tohunga hospital as a delusional because they're not seers. Why do you think we wear the paiaio? He only has one, so do I. We come from a long line of seers, but they didn't believe me. So I have so many songs to sing. A song of hurt, of karanga, of ugly stories, of haka, of disbelief, of maurako, of wanting to erase me, the healing, and erase the healing songs out of me. How many songs do we sing? How many songs have you sang in your healing process? So I remembered that, and I began to go through my life. I was a prostitute in Wellington, beating shit out of men because I hated them. I hated every part of any male that even looked at me, because I was raped and hurt so bad as a child and as a young woman. So people, the stories that we have to tell must come from the depths of that heart. I stored that in my puku until I learned the voice of that puku, the voice of the oro that sits well in my puku. And I learned to sing the songs that my nan and my koro and my papa would sing. So my job now is learning over the years to heal me. I went everywhere for healers. I went to psychologists. I even studied, I'm an advanced clinical psychotherapist. But it's the useless piece of paper that I ever have, because it's not that will heal me. I went to find out the best way to heal, and I found that the healer was within. I had to learn to sing my doors and open my door. You have to learn to sing your soul back into being as well, and open that door. And that's our job. We're not healers, but we're certainly those ones that will open the door and say, get out here, you healer. You've got it inside of you. The atua did not create you boring. They gave you everything that you needed, but you need to develop those beautiful gifts that your pukenga, that you were given with birth. Decolonize. And what is that process? It's painful. It's not an easy process. You have to own lots of stuff. And don't worry, because your training began at 5 years old in schools. What Hinewirangi talks about being the first tool of assimilation. And you have to learn that you were trained well to be a brown-skinned, brown-eyed pārea. And we did it very well in order to survive. And some of us are still practicing in that way. And it's about undoing all that process. And to what? To te reo Māori, te reo rangatira. What? To whakapapa, to pūrako, to paki waitara. We all have such important stories to tell, because I realized when I started the first Māori Women's Centre to help heal children and young adults that have been hurt through rape and incest throughout their sexual abuse and whatever way, domestic violence in Hamilton, because there was no other dealing with Māori, with us. Using our narratives, using our songs, our waiata that could help us sing, that could help our mana and our strength and our tuara stand strong. And that we didn't have to prove to anybody. We didn't have to take somebody's narrative and they chuck it at you and say, now you're going to do this. This is what you need. There's only two kinds of healing programs in the Western world, and that is theory or pills. We have so many hidden, beautiful, beautiful rituals that we can heal from using our own narratives. And if you want to know that, it's inside you. You see, the door, I work to open those doors within you to find your healer, because you know best about you than anybody else in the world. You know best about what you need to help you heal than anybody else in the world. I needed my artistry. I needed to write my story so I could take my pain out of me and put it on books. I got spreads of books, and I wanted to tell the truth to my children, because I don't want them to find out years later, did you know your mother was a prostitute paying Carmen in Wellington with all those with all of those drag queens, eh? No, I want to tell them myself, because those women, those people taught me great lessons of love, because they too had a hard road to walk. The mokai that our nans and our kuia called mokai, that Pākehā trans, they put them into this other world of sexualizing all of those spaces. By nature, as Māori, we're bisexual. Taha Maui, he wahine kei roto i au. Taha tāne ke matau kei roto i au. I have both, male, female. I would be, but Pākehā sexualizes everything. And when that sexualization came down, heka, suddenly we weren't bisexual. And you try to mention that to anybody, but we are. We have both male, female. And if we tend to walk one side or the other, he mokai tēnei, ki te taha o tōku kuia, me noho. So it's like beautiful, you know. And in our traditions, we have to be careful that we don't take a Pākehā construct back into those traditionals and try to whakatika in Māori terms, because it's not going to work. So our road was to walk in that beautiful natured self and say to ourselves, hey, I walked back in my being, and I needed to talk to my uncle. I talked to him when I was 50 years old, finally. I spat at him. I screamed at him. I yelled at him. I told him how he stopped my life. And I said, I was no longer afraid of him, because I'd come through a hard road of trying to heal. I started the Māori Women's Centre for Sexually Healed People because I needed to heal me. We can't go in healing everybody else people unless this person is well and healed from all of that. And you have the gift. The tupuna gave you those gifts, but we just have to help you find it. Kei roto i a koe. I don't believe it's anywhere else. Yeah. And it's so beautiful, I tell you, when you begin to find what you are carrying and your inner beauty. I mean, we're just going through matariki right now. Like, you know, hello. I'm having our wahine carving hui, they're carving gourds. We have a hui every month. And they're doing 2 stars that, and I don't want them to tell me about what the stars roles are. I want them to tell me what star emanates and manifests in you. I said, for me, you can have a look at how Hinewirangi is a tipuā. How is it? Go outside at the back and find out and come back and tell me, how do you think tipuā emanates out of Hinewirangi? Because I live a rongoa forest that I grew with my mokopuna at the back of a little section in the middle of Dinsdale. You can go and hug a kauri, 2 kauri in fact. You can go and gather rongoa, whatever you need. I have a burrowing owl that sits in my rimu and sleeps in my rimu during the day. I have tons of tui that talk to us all the time, kereru. I have a beautiful, beautiful winter garden. Tipuā. Hey. And then most of us, a lot of us still in a baby of Hinewirangi. You know, how does that emanate out? What are your dreams and your aspirations? How does that impact you? I don't care about those things up there. What I need you is to place that star within so you can see yourself shine. Because most of our tupuna, come in. Most of our tupuna, you know, left those gifts for us right there, but we tend to put them like the Pākehors do in a myth, you know, where they think the myth is somewhere out in that nebula somewhere. Like those Goldilocks and the 3 bears or whoever they miss. Hey, but we need to have a look. Those are the gifts left to formulate our beautiful selves. So the healer is within you. Find it, it's beautiful. And learn to sing your song. I had this out with him, and I was 50 years old, man, and did I bash him? I verbally bash him. I was angry. I was hugely angry. And then when I finally gave it up and I looked at him, is Chelsea? Tell her to come in. And I looked at him. He was cowering in a corner, and my little child heart came into place. I used to sit on a turu. He was a master carver and watch him carve. He taught my hands how to carve. He taught me about design. He taught me about the stories that go in the whare whakairo and the importance of kōwhaiwhai. He taught me all of that, and yet that's what hurt. I loved him. I loved him unconditionally as a child, and he hurt me. I hated what he did, but I still found this child heart forgiving him. I sit in a state of forgiveness right this moment, helping. Then I went back. How did I get to this state? How did I come here? I began to draw again. I began to create again. I began to write my stories, my journals, one after the other, so that I could help me heal. Because I went everywhere. Yeah, every counselor, you name it. Every psychologist, everybody. Even I went to a bishop of the Mormon church, and he said, if only Moses, the law of Moses was in, I'd marry you and show you what a man is all about. Well, excuse the real, you know, but I thought, well, fuck you, I'm out of here. So people, the greatest healer that you can ever sing is a song that sits inside of you, that recognizes your power, your strength, your beauty, your mana, all the gifts. Once you start to recognize that in you, then you'll begin to see your tupuna dancing within you. And then it dances, you know, when you hear somebody else talking, you go, yeah. That's because your tupuna is dancing with them one's tupuna. They're dancing together because it makes sense. You understand that. And too long, we have never, ever acknowledged that beauty, inside of you. I'm just saying goodbye to my moko. And look, my beautiful moko, her name is Hinewirangi Time. Here she is, look at her. Pull it down, babe, so you can, look, Tichiro.
Over there, look.
Right no.
Right there. Bye-bye. Did you see yourself, or were you looking for something else? Good, good. Bye-bye.
This is Hinewirangi Time. I'm Hinewirangi Rosemary. I have a Hinewirangi sage, so we just need a parsley now. Bye-bye, darling.
Give Nana a kiss.
I love you.
Say bye-bye.
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 So, kia ora, folks. I just had to stop for an intimate. That's my granddaughter, my youngest one. She's such a touchy, tutu little brat. But she's so beautiful. Okay. So one of the things that I had to learn really hard out was, how did I get to this state of being so that I could look at the formula that I know would have helped heal. If I'm trying to heal me, you can be sure it'll help heal a lot of others too. Not everybody will be healed by the way I work, but certainly lots will. And in that process of healing, you know, we have to, the very first part of it is to decon. That's what I knew I had to do. I had to decolonize, which meant I had to undo. I had to undo a ton of stuff. I had to undo my born into Mormonism. And that took me 3 years to clear inside of me, because I really believed that I was now part of that Christian devil, because I decided to take some very tapu things off. And I felt naked. I felt like unprotected until I got through the process. And then I had to undo all of my pākehā self and recognize, though, that I'm Celtic. So my whakapapa became important because I'm an O'Keefe, from O'Keefe County in the province of Munster in Ireland. And then I'm also a Gemu and a Halbert in my pākehā side of my mother and my grandmother. My father's full blood. So, you know, I had to learn all of that and undo the whakapapa that we grow with in terms of the pūrako, the paki waitara, all of that tupuna left us in order to stand in my own mana. And that's some of the things that, you know, that we tend to forget in terms of the healing processes, because it's beyond the Western paradigms that most of our people just don't get the Western paradigms. Oh no, we're the highest in all the statistical information. Incarceration, men are 57, highest of that incarcerated population of men. Women are at 60, Māori women, 60%. We're only 13 to 15% of 5.5 million people in this country, yet we're homeless, and we have 66.5 million acres. The horses and the cows and the pigs have got more whenua than us. We're homeless, landless, you know. Where are we? And so my work is to look at all of those and to invest. It's just a matter of undoing and learning, so that we can stand together in our mana. So that in its essence was teaching how to heal through pūoro, taonga pūoro, you know, the musical instruments of our tupuna and the stories that they tell, rich in music, rich. See, the Pākehās wanted to keep that part of the culture, but everything else was evil because they could make a money off it. That's why. And they do to this day. Kapahaka is a big time money for tourism. Hey, you know. So let's get real and let's face where we are at and what we want. It's just a matter of relearning and then undoing if we want to. We only have two choices. You will or you won't, or you do or you don't, or you can or you can't. Kei a koe, kei a koutou, as to the choice you want to make. And we'll just stand there and be ready for you when you are ready, using all that we can. Wahine ma, you know, we need to write our stories again. That's why we're doing hui. We're carving hui as wahine because we need to bring back the carving school for wahine too, as well as our tāne. Not just our wahine. I don't know who said we don't carve. Hey, that's all part of that patriarchy kind of rubbish. But I don't buy patriarchy, neither do I buy into matriarchy either. Those are all part of the constructs. I do know about balance and learning how to stand in my own, you know, bisexual self of my tāne, me my wahine. You know, do you think I go out to the prison in my wahine state of being? No, I doubt it. I'm going out to do those naughty boys just with my own man. Kei roto iai. Hey, that's who they want to see, right? And they want to talk to. They want to challenge. They want to do all of those things, our men folk. So I have a story to tell them, you know, we all have a story to write. And sitting and remembering all of those things, you know, and I in my puku, I had to learn how to tangi that puku, because that puku, with that first door of the voice was with the kuia kraua. That kuia kraua, that voice, and you know, the kraua slowed down. So it's the kuia. Her kāranga rattles on the ground, running along the ground, slow. And the koro will and he goes low in his voice and he slows up. Whereas the young fellow will go, you know, not the crow. So, but unfortunately, with women store their pain, most of the time we store it in the whare tangata. We store it there and we hurt there really bad. And until we learn to cry, and learning to cry was the hardest thing to let go, because it felt like I was being weak, I was being stupid, and I was being, you know, all of that tangiwito, as they would say. But I learned to cry because I learned to cry from my kuia. Hey, my kuia, remember? They'd sit around and play kari at a tangana. And then somebody would pop their head in the door and they'd go, hey, ko tā mai nā manu whiri. Next minute, those kuia would put away all their karis, and they're cheating as they did. I used to sit there and watch them. They would cheat as man. And then they pack away their kari and then we'll get you and going to get that back after. Now wait. And then next minute, their ahua would change. And the minute somebody stepped in the door, they would go, and on the top of their voices, I used to think, what a fraud. Not until I grew did I understood their job was to incite the tangi, ke roto i a rātou. As they stepped in the door, they gave them permission to let that tangihana come hard. However they wanted, loud as they wanted, and they would cry for loud as, and I learned to cry in my tangi of my pain through my puku out of the whare. Yeah. So it was, you know, things like stories that impacted that story. I wrote up that story about those kuia kraua and learning the pain of the puku and the waiata of the song of the puku, and how to develop that within you in order for you to stop, you know, all that mamai you got in there. You know, with our men, the cervical stuff that's deep in that gut and that puku. And learning to get rid of that stuff is really, really important. So I began to write, I began to see the format of healing left there as I walk the journey backwards in order to walk forwards, because we have to, you know, we have to walk the past in order to walk the forward, in order to be the now. And we walk in all of those corners and so here we are in terms of the healing process of walking back into the whare and looking at the different places that we store. The next door is up in Manawa, the heart chambers. That's where the rangatahi live. And you only rangatahi until somebody says, tēnā koe e koe, o e koro. But until then, you could be 70, 80 years old until they address you at that level. You stay in rangatahi. That's it. End of story. Come out of babies, pepi, ngā pepi, ara koena, he rangatahi. And that's the heart. You fall in love in that heart. That's the heart stuff. I didn't fall in love in my heart, but I had a wonderful, wonderful relationship with a beautiful, beautiful gay man. And I loved him desperately because he didn't want sex with me. And I didn't want it with him either. I didn't want that at all in my life. So I've been, you know, not intimate after my son was born. Done. Over 49 years. He'll be 49 soon and 50 next year. This boy of mine. So, you know, when I think of those journeys, I've started to write them up in a journal and then formulating a program of healing through taonga pūoro, through the pūoro strata, through carving hue, growing the hue, to understand gourds and their uses by Hinewirangi Kohu, the goddess mother of, now she's the equal of Rongomatane, god of peace. Who do you think his equal is? Hinewirangi. It was her who opened her hue to take up when those boys were all arguing, those atua were all arguing as to who would separate Hinewirangi, and that's the story of her. We have to rewrite and learn our stories. We have no idea. Because a white male, you know, wrote our stories. Sir George Grey and, you know, Elston Best and all of these white men that came out here to do their doctor on us. So people is learning that the heart strata and what that song is there for you, you know. And I learned beautiful waiata in there. And one was a waiata that was composed by my uncle, who fell in love with a wahine far too young to be his wahine. He went to ask for her hand in marriage, and the people said no. Kahungunu, Ngāti Kahungunu said no, and you will wait until she is a woman when she is in her first moons. Now, we didn't have the legal age stuff. As soon as you bled, you were wahine. That's the way we worked. So he had to wait, and he was not allowed to see her until that time. So he stood across the other side of the waiapu. He's a huata whānau, you know, from up there. Wītatau, huata, paraire huata, all of those huata whānau. They had a hui around this waiata because they owned it. They didn't realize that their koro wrote the song for this wahine that he married, finally married when he was able to. But he wrote this waiata right across the other side, and he would stand there singing it to her to keep their love alive. But he never came down off that river. She could hear him every day in a rich baritone. He would sing her. Po kare kare ana, na wai o wai a pūwhiti atu koe a hine, nāri na wana e. He sang it like a love song. It wasn't when I pulled carry on. We had a rotten banana. We threw it at the teacher. So he said, that's why I hated that song until I found out who wrote it. We sing our songs so wrong. We have no idea of how we jazz up tangihana songs. You know, like Hinewirangi Melbourne writing a song for this Kiwi who was a blind man. He committed suicide after talking to Hinewirangi, and he wrote his beautiful, you know, song, and guess what? We jazzed it up. So, but it's all of those that we need to relearn. It's learning to sing the song that sits deep in your rangatahi heart, and sharing that love song with your babies. What kind of love songs you sing to your babas? What kind of oriori have you written for your babies? The rituals of oriori. We don't know any of that. In the pūoro, at the birthing of your child, do you play the pū moana, not the pū tātara, the pū moana, for Hine moana, because she's part of the sacred waters that child is born into, the sacred waters of Wainui Ate, the goddess mother of all the sacred waters, people. And they have so many things that we have to learn about those beautiful atua wahine, kei rote te wai, kei rote te whare tangata. We have to learn about Hine Teiwaiwa. She was the principal goddess of the whare tangata, but she was also Hinauri with Hiniro, who had a son, and he beat her up. She left him and went out. The woman's refuge could do a lot of kōrero around Te Iwiwa, and how she finally lifted her soul into strength. And I relate and emanate, and she manifests in me to become this very strong wahine Māori for our own people, not for Hinewirangi. None of the story that I'm talking to you people about belongs to Hinewirangi. I don't buy into that, you know, egotistical myself and arrogance of myself, because it's all tupuna kōrero. Doesn't belong to me. It belongs to all of us. We don't own it. So, you know, I find it real hard to reference a whole lot of tupuna kōrero. So I said to Naomi, Dr. Naomi Simmons, how do I reference, you know, tupuna kōrero? Who told you? I said, my papa and my kuya, reference them. Oh, okay, cool. Because that's how we learn. But learn to be that creative self. Otherwise, you're boring. Have a look at your creative self. What are you? What do you do? What creativity things do you do? Or would you like to do? You know it's deep in your soul, but you haven't learned it. That's all. And know that you, again, have that opportunity to reach out and do a whole lot of things that that I know that will help you stand in your own mana and glow like the beautiful person you were born to be, to find your healer within you and find the song that will help you. Find the song that will help you walk your road. And because I have so many ways, to write my story, and I've been writing my story now for a long time around, and it talks about, it starts with this: I want to talk to you beyond my whisper. You have silenced me for so long. You have a loud voice that took my language, silencing me to my tupuna kōrero. We walk lonely in silence, unable to touch the ancient memories. Like your machines, you put my voice on mute. I opened this kōrero by undoing the mute that you put my voice into. It is a voice that will never again allow you to shut it down. It is a voice of anger, often a lonely voice, but nonetheless a voice of strength. A voice that was healed not by your theorizing or your only other healer of chemical death, colorful, seductive pills produced never to heal, just to soften the pain for a little while or to send us into a walking coma. Yes, an angry voice, but a journey to wellness has to start from this point of understanding why I am angry with you, Western paradigms. Because I sit here in my indigenous skin, knowing my journeys to wellness has been a long journey. I remember learning styles and how to use those with my people to help heal their journey, and took great comfort in the work of others that will help me to help you, to help yourself. And I walk in that space, people, because I'm just so knowing that I want to talk to you beyond my whisper. And it is, I want to talk to you again beyond my whisper, taking me into a world of individualism, a world of patriarchy, raping my woman's voice, silencing me into subservience, no longer being in balance, sexism, racism, all the isms that rape my voice, sending me into silence. But I sit here in my indigenous woman's skin, knowing that the first colonizer took away the balance of our wondrous culture. Christianity raped our women's cultures of roles within our traditions, which we respected and balanced with our men in every aspect of papa kainga. In the work of Hinewirangi Moana, the personification of the ocean, talking her story. All the wahine. See, we have a lot of work to do, wahine ma. Me tāne ma. Together, because we can walk forward together to undo a lot of our structures that we walk with right now in order to decolonize our people and ourselves. You have to decolonize you first. You can't decolonize anybody else. Just you. How do you think? Yeah. You have to take away some of those structures you get into. Only you know. And that's all right. And I love that you know. But it's being able to be truthful and honest with that, and learning to live in that. Learning to live in that, and keeping yourself in your own mana safe. Safe. You know how to keep yourself safe. And that's where I want to work from. From that's beyond my whisper. I'm no longer going to whisper anymore. And so I start all of my PhD buddy writings with, I want to talk to you beyond my whisper, colonizer. And I'll write whatever it is that I'm writing about that particular part of my story. Yeah. Yes, I think, and so the thing that once I had said that my uncle died about some months after, believe it or not, of prostate cancer. My brother sent him to me from Tauranga Moana to stand trial for him, against him, for 150 other babies that he had hurt so badly, like me. And I did to bring closure to them, but I'd already made my closure some months prior. Face-to-face kanohi ki te kanohi, and then 4 months later he was sentenced, but died before he could spend time in prison, which was, you know, karma. That's the way karma goes. The most beautiful kawa I know, artist, you know, just absolutely beautiful. But he has to, I had to give it back to him. That's all I needed to do, was give back his work. We carried that for so long, and I don't know why I carried it for so long, but I gave it back. And working in the work that we've been doing with Waka Eke Noa, and it's been one of those journeys that I wanted to take them through the healing process of pūoro and other things, to show them narratives that could heal our people and sing the song. And I work with Haumanu right now, which is, Haumanu is a pūoro, taonga pūoro group of people trying to keep pūoro safe in terms of alive. They didn't die with Hidini. Hidini didn't, you know, believe it or not, it was Richard Nuns that started this journey for most of us, because he was a muso of his own, and he was interested. I know he came to Huria Marae to visit with my dad, who was a pūoro's player. And we all went, what that pārea want, with my papa. And we went to sit in on that hui hui. My dad sent him to Joe Malcolm in Rotorua. Joe Malcolm sent him all around, and then he finally got to the University of Waikato, to Hidini. And hence there started that. But guess what? Took a Māori, a doctorate Māori, to sell us out, and gave that space to Pākehā doctors. So we no longer have a taonga pūoro kura, the only one in the whole of Aotearoa. He sold it, our own. Sold it out. Pissed me off, man. I that's why we started Haumanu, was so that we could protect, and I didn't want to see it in a university where they could just chuck it away and give that whole space to another Pākehā program rather than our Waka, you know, than our taonga pūoro. And where did they put all of those beautiful pūoro? Behind glass, so we couldn't touch them now. That's what their museums are made of. Untouchable. You come to this one here in 31 Blackburn Street, you have a big fat tutu. You know, you play all of the pūoro that are lying around this house, and you take it out into the forest and play out there with those birds out there, you know. It's living. It's a living legacy to my babies and to everybody that is interested in learning pūoro. So yeah. But there's so much for us to write and learn, and I'm willing to teach that whenever. So that's me. And I want to just leave this one song with you. This is the song that I would sing, through all my life, to save my life over and over. And that's the song my nan left me. She said, you know, baby, it's like the seaweed does the dance of life. These big kelp, have you ever seen a kelp swaying under the water? And no matter the face of the water, it could be angry ocean, but the seaweed had learned to dance the dance of life. Otherwise it would be pulled up and spat out and sent up on the sand, and then those namu-namus will get it and it would just rot. So she said, like that, you have to learn to dance the dance of life, my baby, so that you don't become chucked up on the sand and rot. It took me a long while to understand the strength of my nan's song. And this is Kahungunu style, so there's many other styles of this waiata that is sung, but I sing it my nan's way and my dad's way. ki te pō. Kei reira aku e hine Riana mai e. Me atu kia koutou tēnei wā. Tēnā koutou. Me atu kia koutou here aroha me koe Leonie, me koe Bernadette Lee. Just me atu kia koutou. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Kia ora Hinewirangi, tēnei te mihi atu ki a koe mōu. O tō koha mai, kia tātou katoa I tēnei ahi ahi. No reira.
I can't hear you, Leonie.
Ai. Tēnei te mihi atu ki a koe. Mo tō koha mai, kia mātou. Ka rongo koe? Can you hear me here the other one, Bernie? Yeah. Okay. There's something at your end, Hinewirangi?
I can't hear her. Where do I click for her?
Oh, let's see the other half. Kia ora. It's fine.
Oh, we can't hear you.
Yeah, I can't hear her. Ask Bernadette if she would, let's see whether she can.
Oh, I've got my computer on.
Yeah.
Okay. So, just while we're
Bernadette, can you hear me? See if we can hear you. Unmute?
Yep, I can hear you all
Nah.
right, Hinewirangi.
No, we can't hear you either. No.
Ah,
Okay, there's something up with your sound. Test microphone soon.
I think he
Here Aroha's going to come back and try and figure it out so that I Paul Hayes. No, unmute. Mute. I'm on asked to unmute.
while we're waiting for Hinewirangi to and Hiri Aroha to fix the sound at that end. I'm just wondering if you have any other questions, please just put them on the Q&A or the chat.
Can you hear it?
Okay, so you need to turn one of the computers off. Can you hear? So, okay. Ka pai he the other half, if we go on yours would be good.
Can you hear us now?
Yes, we can. Can you hear us? Okay.
yeah.
Right. All right. All right, good. We just need to move Hinewirangi into the middle of the shot.
With that little heart pointing up there.
Okay, there you are. Okay. Come closer to the screen so we can see you. Ka pai, excellent. Right there. Ka pai.
Oh, there's me.
Okay. Tēnei te mihi atu kia koe Hinewirangi. So we're going to run out of time. I did a big mihi to you before, and so you can listen to it on the recording. We've got a pārtai up for you from Huadai, and it says, Kia ora whaia. Your sharing is inspiring and heartwarming. Forgive me to ask, what is the term in te reo for the Western concept of a wounded healer? Is there a whakaaro that you have around that? I guess too, maybe it would be good to get your whakaaro around those kupu, around that kind of feeling of wounded anyway, you know?
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm. I actually think that it depends on how you're wounded, really. And you know what that is. You know how you're wounded. What do you mean by that wounded healer? No, because, you know, kei roto I a koe, it has been, that healer there has been protected for a long time. You haven't actually used that. So you need to now open that, take out the Pākehā construct of thinking, because that wounded, that healer has not been wounded because it's protected by tupuna, kei roto i a koe, totally and utterly. The idea of being hurt and wounded like we have been, it's been very real. That's a very part of the physical house and how we can take care of that. But the wounded healer, now that for me is it's not our concept, but because it's that healer, kei roto i a koe, has been totally guarded, which is why we don't often remember and have to be led along the pathway to open those doors to undo, so that we can find that warrior healer, kei roto i a koe. Yeah. And not to be romantic either. It's very real. It's just real. So I hope that answers your question.
Okay. Hinewirangi, when you talk about oro, can you tell us a little bit about that term and what that means? You know, when you think of oro, what does that mean for you?
Oh, it has huge meanings, as what is very normal traditionally, huge meanings, you know. It's like the oro is the voice, but it doesn't just doesn't just apply to this voice that we're using out of the voice of the waha, or the voice. It's also the unspoken voice, the deep oro, kei roto i a koe. It's also the oro of the natural world, and the very many different oro in the natural world that we go to heal. Some of us will want to be working with the ocean, you know, with Hine Moana, to wash, to clear the whatever pain or whatever, the cleansing process that we have in that oro of the waves of the ocean of Hine Moana has a different oro. So oro isn't just, it's holistically looking at it and not to singularize it just to the human voice, because oro has a language of its own in the ngahere, you know, in the natural world. It has its own voice everywhere. And, you know, kei rangi nui, kei opa tuānuku, kei roto, kei waho, every aspect, the oro is heard, and we have to learn to undo our singular family, little individualistic little thinking, which is a pāga construct, into a very bigger Māori tradition, but starting with the self. So in your own whare, you have the whare tapawha. There's how many oro in there for you to develop, from a wairua oro to the hinengaro of the emotions and the intellects oro, from the whānau, and how many you got in that whānau, to the hapura iwi, how many voices do you have? And it's about discovering that oro, a wider concept of thinking. Then we might start getting back to where our tupuna really thought and took us to, and the journeys of the oro. The oro is also of a spoken kind, you know. Te ro toku waka ko mata tuaka u ki te taira patiki ngā kuria pāre ki te kiro. E puhi ki te tai toke rau ki hoki anga pakapau karaki a keireira nā puhi, and it can be tēnā koutou. The oro has so many types. The young ones do a oro, and they're rapping, you know. I just don't like their reo sometimes when they can change that reo over a little bit. And but there's so many oro. And if we just try and stick to one, then that's very pāka in conceptual thinking, in our thinking. And we have to learn to, how many oro, my puku has a oro, my manoa has a different oro, my kaki has a different oro to my upoko. Because that oro of the upoko has a high-pitched karanga. For the male, it has that, you know, they have that big high voice. Oh, higher than my voice. Yeah. So yeah, my concept of oro is wide.
Kia ora. Hinewirangi, I'm just going to get you to lean over and take that background off the screen if you can for a moment, just because it's flickering quite a lot. Hinewirangi, one of the things that you talked about in the kōrero is you talked about ori. And we've had this conversation before with the team that you've shared with the team. And so I'm just wondering if you could share a little bit now about the importance of us reclaiming ori and how we go about doing that for those of us who are not schooled, you know, and I mean, how do we bring that forward? What do we do? People who don't have the reo but want to write something for their babies and for their mokopuna, and those that do have the reo but don't know how to write it. What's your whakaaro on that?
Well, it's a hard one because no one's been, it's all about just learning. I have a book called Ori that I wrote for us, just a very basic idea of how to write an ori and what's inclusive in those books. And there's two of us that put this ori. One is a very learned man from the tokerau, from the Tai tokerau, and he is hugely learned, I must say. And he, no, it's yucky. And it's this book, like ori. It's only a little book, but it gives us Taipari Munro, who is, you know, he's a classical Māori speaker, very classic, uses the old reo, he reo rangatira, because that's the way he's like. And mine is more of a modern reo that talks, I wrote a piece, and I wrote it in English. Then I took it to Te Makau Teruki, a friend of mine, and said, whakamari te tēnei, because my reo is, you know, I was still learning. E aho te reo. So I took it to my best friend and said, hey, whakatika nā kupu. This is to my baby. And I wrote it in English, all the things. And this little book gives you that guideline. Now, all you have to do is go online to what I call Zoom Digital Printers Hamilton. Tell them you want that book. You have to pay for them to ship it to you and to print it, but they'll print 1 or 2 or 3. And you're more than welcome to go to that. And it's just a very basic way to write, to gift your child their name, to gift and why your child see, and then have it. If you don't speak te reo, then go and get it done by those who can, and then make sure that you know what you're saying. Because I wrote to my daughter and said, te aniwa, ke te mihi a koe mispa mere te aniwaniwa kohu. Your name is mere te aniwaniwa kohu. Before you came, there were 3 grandmothers, mere te arama, and then I name all mere te arama's gifts that you get as being named after her. And so there's so much you can leave as a taonga and then get them. And it was also Te Makau that put the voice to it, you know, has helped me put a voice to it and what ori is supposed to sound like, because it's scary when you don't know. And so the education work of just writing one teaches you alone. And who said there's a way to write it? At least you're trying to put something together for your babies. Have you? Have you done that for your babies? You know, ask yourself. They deserve it. They deserve their own story about how was that morning or that evening when you gave birth. What was the sky like? Was it full of stars? Was it dark, or was it beautiful and sunshine? And you're telling that little one how they were born and under what atua, whatever. However the day was, the night was, and you're gifting them their gift. One of the first gifts they are given when they leave the sacredness of the whare tangata and enter te ao Māori. That's what I have for that one, Leonie. But they're more than welcome to get that little book, and then if they want to do that, and it'll help them.
Kia ora. So ori also is a mechanism of healing, isn't it? Intergenerational healing.
Yep, it is. Totally and utterly. And it's a way to, yeah, it certainly is a way to start the healing process with our people. It's to write about their beauty. And that's what we're doing with our babies, telling them how beautiful they are.
Kia ora, Hinewirangi. I'm aware that the Zoom will lock down soon in a couple of minutes. I just wanted to give you an opportunity if there's anything that you wanted to close with in terms of helping people on their healing journey. Any closing kōrero you want to make, and then we'll hand it to Hiri Aroha at your taha to do our karakia whakamutunga. But is there anything that you want to say, you know, to those of us who are undertaking healing journeys ourselves, just as a closing whakaaro?
Yeah, it's just, I think, remember that how beautiful you are. That's all. How simply beautiful. And don't ever get romantic about things, Māori, because you see, our tupuna used things and kept things simple. We have this big idea of making it real biggy that, you know, that we get lost in that whole in-depth when it was never like that. It was just simple. Keep it simple. As you do your journey into yourself and understand why you're going there, and know that you were born beautiful and strong, and you still are. And take the journey to the self. Learn about how beautiful you are. Ka pai.
Tēnā tātou. Tēnā koe te mārai kura, korua ko Leonie mo tēnei o ngā hui I runga I te ipurangi hoi anō ki tēnei o ngā hui hohonu rawa atu ngā kōrero I roto mā tātou katoa tēnei te mihi atu kia koutou. Ko tai mai ki te whakarongo I nei o ngā kōrero o tō tātou nei mārai kura tēnā tātou. Hikitia, hikitia. Hikitia te rongo mai whiti o tēnei o ngā huihuinga. Toko a kia oi, ko ranginui ki runga ko papatūnuku ki raro. Tūturu whakamaua kia tina, haumi e hui e,
Tai
ki. Tēnā tātou.
Kia ora koutou.